Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Yeah, we're not afraid here on Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, here in Phoenix, Arizona, from the beautiful studios of Freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com. I have Ivan Elin. He's senior fellow and director at the Center for Peace and Liberty at the Independent Institute, and I need to understand some things. I mean, there's some things way above my pay grade, okay, assuming I get paid. This is the understanding of, you can't even comprehend the number. $9 trillion that is coming. I mean, we haven't even got to the details yet. I mean, back pocket of Fred. I mean, somebody's got a bunch of money. And it's so enormous what the Fed did. And it's not just us. It's like the Federal Reserve became the central bank of the planet. And I don't remember them asking me. And they sure as heck are indebting the future generations and giving it to other banks in Europe and around the world and corporations. And I just need somebody to help me just understand the macro understanding of what's going on. Ivan Elin's going to try and help me out here. Ivan, what can you tell me to kind of give me a beat on what's going on?
Well, the Fed was the I guess the money bags for not only U.S. banks, but U.S. corporations and even foreign central banks and corporations. And so effectively your tax dollars are being given to foreign entities, to stabilize the global economy. The problem with that is I think the government's interventions in the long term weaken the economy to prevent the short-term meltdown which probably needed to occur given all the overindulgence in the system. The government has bailed everyone out. Of course, in the long term, it creates what economists call moral hazard, which if you go to Las Vegas and I give you $100 and I say, well, you can get if you lose all the money, I'll give you $100 back. What are you going to do? Of course, you're going to make the riskiest investments you can to get the biggest return because you know somebody's going to bail you out. The same thing happens when the government tells banks and corporations and everything else that it will bail them out on the downside. So they make riskier investments, riskier loans, et cetera, because they know that they're too big to fail or too important to fail. And so therefore,
too connected to fail.
Beg your pardon?
They're too connected to fail.
Right, exactly. And so, of course, what does that do? It makes their behavior risky. So in the long term, you have this moral hazard, which if nobody fails, then everybody's irresponsible. And that really undermines the long-term nature of the system. So you may have avoided a short-term recession, but certainly long-term, you may have really undermined the economy even more.
Well, this is the one thing that I don't know how much you know about this, but you see tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars going to these foreign banks and even insurance companies and private corporations and all kinds. And just, wow. I'm wondering, the Fed just took it upon themselves saying, yeah, we know what to do with your money. Ben's got his helicopter out and we're just, pushing pallets of money out. And I'm going, okay, so they do this. In exchange for it, looked like a lot of them, all these mortgage-backed securities that they had purchased on the market, like you were saying. I mean, they're doing the big risk. If it's free money, man, we're gonna go for the big return. And then the Fed took all these mortgage-backed securities and said, what? And they're nothing. They're just we've been talking about this for a long time. They're not backed by any mortgage, and they sure as heck aren't secure. So what are they going to do with them? What, do I get them? I mean, as a taxpayer, we're what? I don't even understand how we're ever going to recoup any of this money. They just gave it away.
Yeah, well, the taxpayer somebody has to pay for all that bad debt, and it's the taxpayer. What they're essentially doing underneath all this is shifting the cost from the people who should bear it, the banks and mortgage lenders, et cetera, who made the bad loans. They're shifting the burden to the taxpayer, and that's what happens, and that's the irresponsibility that I'm talking about in the system. And that not only lets people off the hook, which is a moral problem, but it also undermines the whole system, because the system of business is that the more risky, the more money you make. And sometimes people fail, and you hear all these stories about billionaires failing many times before they hit it right. Well, they're big risk takers, and so finally maybe they get it right. But this risk-reward system that the market is set up to do, and it works, is undermined by the fact that the government is playing around with the risks and the rewards, and so the taxpayer ends up footing the bill for everybody, and it's really quite unbelievable. And to take an example, the General Motors Corporation, all the media was cooing about how it's now profitable. Well, of course, it was profitable because they took all the bad debt and everything off the books. So it doesn't take a genius to see that it would be profitable. Anybody could make money if you take all their liabilities off the balance sheet. So, or at least a lot of them. So this is the type of thing they're doing with banks, et cetera. So I think the whole system we're sort of, if the economy does end up recovering, and it's not certain that we're not going to end up in a Japanese type of situation where the economy is sluggish for a long time. But let's say the economy does recover, we may just be in another string of bubbles, and the government-induced bubble, which will crash down the road. And that's the danger, of course, by the Fed pumping all this money into the system. And the other danger is, of course, that inflation down the road will worsen. Certainly we don't have it now, but when they put that much money into the system, there's always the risk that that could happen.
Well, we have the situation. I mean, now. I mean, it's now. We have the stock market shooting up. We have, and I'm not even sure what that's based on. 300 points in the last couple of days. And based on what? Because they got access to more free money. I mean, I don't even. And in insider trading, we have all the CEOs and everything. It's like, first it was a couple of hundred, then it was 500, then it was 1,500, this is 5,000, this is 8,000 something to one of them selling. So I'm just going, there's something else afoot. There's something else. It's like a stalling tack or something. There's some big plan. They got a plan. They always got some plan. I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm sure they got a plan. And they're going to what in this next legislative session coming up? I mean, what are you guys preparing for? What are all of your speakers and your experts and so on at the Independent Institute? They're getting ready to go on the talk shows and start talking about how we're going to survive. What do you even get an idea? You know what's coming?
Well, it's predicting the economy is somewhat of a iffy science, but I think basically what we've done is we've conducted a massive stimulus, both these pork projects that the administration has put out there in the actual stimulus bill, but then also what you're talking about that the Bush administration did before that is bail out the banks, and that's sort of a monetary stimulus. And of course the Fed is still stimulating away by even though interest rates have dropped to near zero, the Fed is finding all these other instruments. And I think basically what they're doing is we may end up pushing on a string like Japan did for a long time.
Zombie countries all over the planet. Well, I'm hoping that we can survive this one when we come back. Well, Ivan Elan from the Independent Institute. Maybe there's something individuals we should be doing. We'll find out what he has to say about it when we come back here on Declare Your Independence in just a little bit.